All right, so let's go ahead and go over your dimensional analysis Olympics answer sheet. So in event number 1, we did the broad jump. Okay, so we're going to neatly show your dimensional analysis here, show all units, conversion factors, and use the railroad track format for your dimensional analysis, and then put a box around your final answer. Okay, so our first question is, how many broad jumps should it take for you to jump a mile? Okay, so always start off with identifying what have you been given, okay, and then ask yourself, what are you trying to find? So in this problem, we are asked to look for how many broad jumps. So I'm just gonna box in jumps because that's what we're looking for. How many jumps it would take to jump a mile. So technically a mile is going to be our given value. And whatever your given value is where you are going to start your dimensional analysis. So I'm gonna write 1 mile. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and draw out my railroad track. Okay, and I'm just gonna draw it long because I'm not sure how many conversion factors we're gonna use. Okay, so first off, based off our event, if I look at my data that we recorded yesterday, okay, in event number 1, my average for my jump, one jump, is about 50 centimeters for me. So I'm going to use this conversion factor from yesterday's data to help me solve this problem. Okay, so off to the side, I'm just going to write that from my lab yesterday, 1 jump is equal to 50 centimeters for me. Okay, so of course your value is going to be different because you probably can jump a lot farther than I can. Okay, so I'm gonna use this to help me go from miles all the way to jump, which is what I'm looking for. Okay, so first off, miles is a distance. So how can I convert miles into centimeters? Okay, now this is going to be my first conversion factor. And from your dimensional analysis practice sheet, you have some equivalency statements here. Okay, so if I look for miles, I have miles right here. 1 mile is 1,760 yards. Well, not really looking for yards, but if you look right here, we do have another equivalency. 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. This should say kilometers. Okay, so this is a better equivalency to use than yards, because if you look at our conversion factor, we're converting to centimeter. So of course it's going to be a lot easier to convert from kilometer to centimeter rather than yards to centimeter. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use this equivalency. 1 mile equals 1.61. Okay, so remember to just copy and paste down and across that same unit that you had as your given, so we can cancel that out. So 1 mile is equal to 1.61 kilometers. Okay, so that takes care of my first conversion factor. I can cancel out my miles. Okay, I'm not quite there at centimeters, so I'm going to have to keep going. I'm going to need another conversion factor. And what we learned yesterday, or not yesterday, the other day, converting from kilometers to centimeters, I can go ahead and use my mnemonic device. King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. Okay, so to convert from kilometers to centimeters, I can use my mnemonic device. I know that kilometers is bigger than centimeters, so I can go ahead and start with kilometers. 1 kilometer And I know kilometers goes on bottom because I need to cancel it out. I'm going to copy and paste down and diagonal. Kilometer goes there. Okay, so 1 kilometer is my bigger unit. So how many centimeters is that? So let's go ahead and use the jump method. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to take me 5 jumps to go from kilometers all the way to centimeters. So that's going to be 10 to the 5th power. Okay, so 1 kilometer is equivalent to 10 to the 5th centimeters. Okay, now remember about your exponents. The number 5 tells you how many zeros you have after that 1. Okay, just a little hint. So technically 10 to the 5th is really, there's our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. So 10 to the 5th is actually really 100,000. Okay, so now our kilometers cancels out and we finally have centimeters, which is what we have from our data from yesterday. Okay, so now we can finally use the data from yesterday, so that way we can cancel out centimeters, copy and paste down and diagonal. 50 centimeters, okay, is equal to 1 jump for me. Okay, so now I can go ahead and cancel out centimeters and I'm left with jump. And is jump what I'm looking for in my answer? Yes, it is. Okay, so now we can go ahead and calculate. All right, so remember that any number that you have on top, they are going to be multiplied. Any number you have on bottom, they are going to be divided. Okay, of course, the ones you can kind of ignore because any number that is multiplied by 1 is going to be the same number. Okay, so we have 1.61 times 10 to the 5th, which is exactly the same thing as 100,000. Okay, and then push equals, and then we are going to divide by 50. Divide by 50. Okay, so in 1 mile, it's going to take me 3,222 jumps. Okay, but remember, our final answer must always be rounded to the correct number of significant figures, and you're always going to look at your given for that, which is 1 mile. So 1, the number 1, is just 1 significant figure. So from our final answer, I like to underline the significant figure we need. We only need the first one. And then you're going to ask yourself, okay, so what does this 2 do to that 3? Does it round it up or does it stay the same? In this case, it's going to stay the same. So our final answer is actually going to be 3,000 jumps. And that's how long it's going to take me to jump a mile. Okay, now keep in mind that your answers are going to be different than mine because you have, remember, my jump is only 50 centimeters. Your average jump could be a lot larger than that or a lot smaller than that. So your number of jumps will be different. Your answer will be different, but your setup should be the same. Okay, so moving on to the next one, skip to my loo. Okay, so now it's asking us how many hours would it take you to skip from Houston to Dallas nonstop? Houston to Dallas is 239.1 miles. Okay, so remember, always ask yourself, what is our given? What value did they give us? And what is our question asking for? Okay, so normally I always go just straight to the number. This is the number value that they give us, 239.1 miles. That is our given. And what are they asking for? They are asking for how many hours is that going to take us to skip 39.1 miles. Okay, so of course, let's go ahead and start our dimensional analysis setup by starting with our given. 239.1 and 39.1 miles. Okay, now I'm going to need some conversion factors. And if you guys look at your data from event number 2, okay, remember that our skip, I don't have my data sheet, so I'm just going to use this. From event number 2, 5 meters took me 2.54 seconds to skip. Okay, so I'm going to use that conversion factor. 5 meters, that's how much we skipped. It took me 2.45 seconds to skip 5 meters. Okay, so now we have to, this conversion factor is going to help us convert from miles to meters and then seconds to hours. Okay, so we can actually use the same conversion factor from problem 1 because we are starting in miles. Okay, but instead of converting to meters, or I'm sorry, instead of converting to centimeters, we can actually just convert to meters. Okay, so the first 2 conversion factors are actually going to be very similar. So in 1 mile, we have 1.61 kilometers. Okay, so that's going to cancel out my unit miles. Okay, we're left with kilometers, but I know that 1 kilometer is equal to how many meters? Let's use our pneumatic device. So kilometers is here. It's going to take us 1, 2, 3, only 3 jumps. So 10 to the 3rd meters. Okay, so now that we have meters, we can finally go ahead and use our conversion factor from our event. 5 meters, okay, took us 2.45 seconds to do. Okay, so now that we're finally in time, this one's the pretty obvious part here. Okay, everybody knows that in seconds, we can go from seconds to hours by first converting into minutes, right? So I know that seconds, we can cancel out our seconds. 60 seconds, okay, are in 1 minute. Okay, and then our next conversion factor to convert minutes to hours, we know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. Okay, so if I go back, since I haven't been canceling out my units, kilometers cancels out kilometers, meters cancels out meters, seconds cancels out seconds, and then minutes cancel out minutes. And the only unit that we have left is hours, which is exactly what we're looking for. Okay, so that means we are ready to calculate. Okay, so let me pull up my calculator. Okay, so let's clear that out. So remember, any number that we have on top is going to be multiplied. Any number that we have on bottom will be divided. Okay, so number on top is 239.1. Okay, and then we're going to times that because it's on top, times 1.61. Okay, the next number is 10 to the 3rd, and 10 to the 3rd is 1,000. So times 1,000, and then we have times 2.45, and then we have no more numbers on top, so we're going to go ahead and go down, divided by 5. Okay, and then divided by 60, and then again divided by 60, and then push equals. So that means it's going to take us 52.396. So let me go ahead and write that down on my answer sheet. Okay, so it's going to take us 52.396 hours. Okay, and the reason why I write a lot of digits out is because remember, our answer has to have the same number of significant figures as our given value. So if we take a look at our given value, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 significant figures. And that means I'm going to underline my first 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the only 4 that I need. What does this 6 do to this 9? It's going to round it up to 10. Okay, and 9s are tricky, so it helps to look at the number before it too. Think of this as 39. So what does 6 do to the number 39? Does it round it up or does it stay the same? And it's going to round it up. So therefore, my final answer is going to be 52.40 hours. Okay, and yes, you do have to include that 0 because without that 0, it would only be 3 significant figures. So you do have to include that 0. Okay, and then let's go ahead and take a look at the last one. If you want to try and knock this out and try it on your own, go ahead. Feel free to pause the video. Okay, so our last question is, how many hours would it take you to eat 10 pounds of Tootsie Rolls? Okay, of course, one piece at a time, not at once. Okay, so of course, start off with our given. Okay, we are given 10 pounds and we are asked to look for how many hours. How many hours is it going to take us to eat 10 pounds of Tootsie Rolls? Okay, but of course we didn't eat Tootsie Rolls, we ate Starburst. Okay, and from your event, you should have calculated that our Starburst weighs 5 grams and it took me 45 seconds to eat that Starburst. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewrite that. So my 5 grams of Starburst took me 45 seconds to eat. Okay, and that's going to help us with our conversion. So let's always start off with our given. We are given 10 pounds. Okay, and I do think this one is a long one because we got a lot to do. Okay, so 10 pounds, how do I convert 10 pounds to hours? Remember, this is going to help us. So if we're doing mass, how many pounds or how many grams are in a pound? Can we do that? Let's take a look at our little conversion chart from our notes. Okay, so pounds. Okay, so pounds right here. 1 pound is 454 grams. That's going to be our conversion factor. Okay, so 1 pound is equal to 454 grams. Okay, so there is my first conversion factor. I can cancel out pounds. Okay, since now that I'm actually at grams, I can go ahead and use my conversion factor from my data. Okay, so I know that 5 grams of Starburst takes me 45 seconds to eat. Okay, so now remember, we are finally at time. So what do we know about seconds and hours? Well, we're first going to have to break it down a little because I don't know how many seconds are in an hour, but I do know how many are in minutes. Okay, so it's going to be kind of like this over here. Okay, so to cancel out seconds, I know that there are 60 seconds. Oops, I didn't have to do that. 60 seconds in 1 minute. Okay, and then I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. Okay, so I guess maybe we didn't need all that. So let me just erase that really quick. Okay. All right. Okay. So now that we can cancel out our units, grams cancels out grams, seconds cancels out seconds, minutes, and minutes. We're left with hours, which is what we're looking for. Let's go ahead and calculate. Okay, so we have 10 times 454 times 45, and then divided by 5, and then divided by 60, and then divided by 60 again. Okay, so it's going to take me 11.35 hours to eat 10 pounds of Tootsie Rolls or Starburst. Okay, so 11.35, okay, is our answer from the calculator. But remember, we gotta match significant figures. Okay, if you look at the number 10, okay, the number 10 is actually just one significant figure here because there is no decimal. So because there is no decimal, that 0 at the end does not count. Okay, so that means I only need one significant figure. So what does this 1 do to the first one? Nothing. So that means I end up with 10 hours. Okay, notice how the original 1 changed into a 0 because I don't want to lose my value. Okay, it can't be just the number 1, because if it was just the number 1, then that means it only took me 1 hour to eat that Starburst, but that's not true. Okay, you want to stay true to your value, so the number after it changes to a 0. Okay, and then we don't need these numbers at all, so we don't have to include them in our final answer. Okay, so remember, please keep in mind that your conversion factors are going to be different than mine because your data is different than mine. It could have taken you longer, or you ate your Starburst super fast, okay? It could have taken you only 1 second to skip 5 meters. So your answers are not going to be the same as mine, okay? Your values here and your values here are going to be for sure different. But as far as your setup, it should be the same, okay? Hopefully this helped you out. If you have any questions, let me know.